which is aimed at reviving investor confidence in the telecom sector. That is the single biggest tool to sustain consumer benefit in the Indian telecom sector. Otherwise, you will have a scenario where the big will get bigger and the small will, because the investors are not there, will just fade away in that.
Is that terribly wrong, Rajeev? Because one could argue that it is the hyper competition within the sector that has created an anomaly where nobody is making money, nobody has the money to invest, and everybody is facing a cash crunch. So isn't consolidation in that context a good thing to happen?
No, you see, consolidation cannot be the objective of a public policy. Consolidation cannot be the target of a public policy. The public policy can only create sustained competition. And if somebody makes an argument that the current level of competition is not sustainable, that is a point that the government can take a look at. But that has to be looked at through the prism of clear economics and clear data and figures, not anecdotal, chats about I don't get the money and he gets the money and therefore there is too much competition. I don't believe today 11 operators or 10 operators. I personally don't believe in a market of 900 million consumers, 10 operators represents hyper competition. It cannot be anybody's case that it is just because I am having a difficulty or one company is having some difficulty in raising capital, that represents a logic for mergers and consolidation. So I am not opposed to consolidation, but the point is that has to be through a prism of detailed economics and public consultation. There has to be a clear evidence that such consolidation does not mean higher prices. And we know for the last 1 year that prices have gone up in the telecom sector, and that is anti-consumer, and that cannot be the objective of any public policy of any government.
Okay, that's a debate that we should have with some telecom participants, Rajeev. But my question to you
I'm happy to have it.
And we must have it. Take you up on that offer. But my question to you right now is that, a lot of the controversy around the entire spectrum issue has been on the pricing front. Now, what is a fair way of looking at it? Because one could argue 3G pricing was completely out of whack. The 2G first come first serve sellout was also out of whack. What the foreign players paid smaller telecom players for stakes was also out of whack. So what's the realistic kind of valuation that one should look at?
No. First of all, I will contest this whole characterization that is out of whack. Out of whack for whom? I mean, for the public exchequer, and I'm on that side of the equation, I don't think it's out of whack. Companies have not been forced to bid those amounts. They have bid that in completely free will. Those companies' market caps have gone up. I don't see any evidence that those prices were out of whack. But having said that, like you said, let's have that debate some other day. What the Supreme Court has said is it should be a market mechanism. What people have always maintained is don't leave it to a few bureaucrats to decide what the price of a public asset should be. Let the public asset, in this case the spectrum, be auctioned. The process is more important than fixing a base price or some notional price. So if today's market lends itself to, let's say, lower than 3G prices, so be it. If tomorrow's market makes that spectrum more valuable, that will be the case later on. But the objective of the government today has to be to ensure competition remains at sustainable levels, consumers benefit, and investor sentiment is restored in the telecom sector. So if today somebody raises an issue saying the market is down and the prices of spectrum are lower than, let's say, 2 years ago, that cannot be the reason to delay the auction for these new licenses, and should not be, in my opinion.
But there is the last couple of questions. We are seeing Kapil Sibal leave his home for the group of ministers meeting in New Delhi. A lot of hectic parlays are on in reaction, or trying to get a reaction on this, on the Supreme Court judgment. But in the natural scheme of things, Rajeev, such a lot has happened in the sector since 2008. For many of these companies, they're bleeding. Even the bigger ones are bleeding because of the kind of economics and the business dynamics out here. So do you think that the fact that these 122 licenses have been cancelled, that there will be a re-auction somewhere down the line, that there will be a lot of players who you've criticized as saying players who came in only for the kill to make money on the deals, will start getting shaken out, or they'll start moving out? And in that circumstances, do you see a lot of, takers for that from the incumbents? Do you see outside investors coming in? How do you see it moving?
No, I think one thing is clear today. After today's judgment, one thing is clear that only companies that are serious about telecom and are willing to create value by actually building telecom franchises will remain. All the companies who felt that, knowing a minister or knowing a bureaucrat or knowing somebody and doing shortcuts to get licenses is the way to create value, many of those companies will, in my opinion, I would advise them to leave and do something else. This is changing the dynamics of the telecom sector. This is establishing that there are rules that nobody, including a minister or a bureaucrat, can violate. So clearly the serious players will be the ones who will be in telecom. So there is no doubt about that. Now, what is the nature and process of the exit if there are some non-serious players? That nature and process of exit today will have to be determined by the regulator and the government in a manner that does not again create a perception of windfall gains and windfall exits for people who are non-serious. So this is a tough time for the government because this is not an easy problem to solve, but it can be solved. But it'll have to be solved meeting at every stage the test of transparency, the test of fairness, and the test of correctness. Because otherwise, there will be additional PIs and additional people going to court to try to keep the process honest.
Okay. In the run-up to these changes that you're talking about, what are the 2-3 things that you would like to see the government and the regulators do right now to ease this process of transition?
I think it's very, very important that we have a new telecom policy. The telecom policy has been promised, and the telecom policy must not be all wishy-washy and full of vision and dreams and so on and so forth. The telecom policy should address head-on these current issues of licensing. It should head on the issues of competition. It should address head-on the issues of consumer pricing and benefit. It should address all of the nitty-gritty issues today that are keeping investors worried, keeping consumers concerned, and creating a controversy around a sector that is otherwise a shining example of entrepreneurship and growth in infrastructure in India. There is a need for a new policy. There is a need for strengthening the TRAI Act. The TRAI today is neither accountable fully to anybody, nor is it in a lot of ways got the teeth to do a lot of the things that it should do. So both the TRAI Act amendment and a new telecom policy that addresses the nitty-gritty issues plaguing the sector are important, urgent, and I hope the government focuses on these two big issues and not get defocused on some of the smaller issues that typically tend to come into the picture. But these are the two building block issues that if the government does, we will get back to business as usual. It'll be a good sector. It'll continue high growth and it'll attract significant amounts of investment.
Right, Rajeev. Always great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Rajeev Chandrasekhar on the landmark judgment from the Supreme Court and the kind of impact this could have across the telecom space. And, of course, in terms of policy. We'll head into a short break now, but on the other hand, we will be talking markets with Neeraj Diwan of Quantum Securities, and we will also put the spotlight on the new disinvestment